Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us here. You are watching right now here on the CBS 8 app. Today is Tuesday, June 23rd, and I am Chris Gros, joined here by Jack Hall. And Jack, we have a whole host of things to talk about today. That starts with, of course, the Larry Millete murder trial, day 20, but obviously something else that we talked about just yesterday was the Santana High School shooter, Andy Williams, could potentially be released due to some juvenile court law, and we've been talking about that. We've got the latest when it comes to that, as well as a whole host of sports topics that we want to dive into. Yeah, Giannis Antetokounmpo was traded, indeed, something that we said would likely happen here on the show, but alas, we do start with the Larry Millete trial and the man who had an affair with Maya Millete. This is something that a lot of people had their eyes on here, wondering which day that this would take place. Well, he took the stand in her husband's murder trial. Larry Millete, of course, accused of the crime, but his legal team suggested that other suspects, like Jaime Laird, were not thoroughly investigated by the Chula Vista Police Department. News 8's Jenny Day has more.
This is a witness we have been waiting for. Jaime Laird, who worked with the missing Chula Vista mom as a civilian contractor in the Navy, he testified about how their friendship grew into more. He says while they were both married, he loved Maya, cared for her, and was also concerned for her. He says it was talk on the team's work chat that then moved to Instagram, an affair that started in her office, he said then lasted about 1 year up until the day she disappeared. Laird said he last spoke to Maya on January 7th, 2021, the day she went missing. His alibi, he says he was at the hospital because his now ex-wife was in labor with their first child. 3 days later, he says Maya's friends reached out asking if he had heard from her. He said he had not. Jaime went on to testify about the day he met Larry. He, Larry, and Maya were all pulled into a boss's office and questioned about allegations of an affair that were circulating at work. They both denied it and said it was a big misunderstanding. He says Larry, though, went on to reach out to his wife. Jaime Laird also talked about Maya confiding in him, saying she was concerned about how controlling Larry was and that she wanted a divorce. When Laird was cross-examined by the defense, Larry's attorneys attacked his credibility, saying he lied to his wife, he lied to his bosses, and the police. He admitted that he lied and deleted all of their messages. He also did not make any attempts to reach Maya after he learned she was missing. Jaime says he was scared, did not want to lose his job or his marriage. Then he was dismissed. He could be called back, but that is it from him for now. There was also more talk today about that poisonous plant hemlock that prosecutors say Larry asked questions about, even searched. They say they found a vial of it in the Millete home. So was Maya poisoned? Prosecutors, though, have also pointed to loud bangs heard on neighborhood surveillance cameras. So we still really just do not know. Chula Vista police return to the stand tomorrow. Jenny Day, News 8.
All right, and as we welcome you back in here, Jaime Laird, obviously a very notable figure here, not only in the story of the disappearance of Maya Millete, providing that context behind, obviously, her marriage that was crumbling, seeking refuge, if you will, in someone else. But then also you have the defense, who for a long time during these proceedings were trying to paint him as a potential third suspect, or excuse me, a second suspect, and just try to point out that, look, the Chula Vista Police Department may not have done their job. And Jack, that led to basically a pre-jury sidebar conversation that I think was very important. And I think that while this is not something that the jury necessarily heard, it does provide context for just how sort of the anticipation built up about this, because it was very important about how the questioning went about when it came to Jaime Laird on the stand.
And you mentioned this was a pre-jury sidebar that took place today, but there had been numerous sidebars that have been taking place throughout the course of this trial, and you mentioned it right, but just to reiterate, specifically, how far will the defense questioning be allowed to go? Clearly, the defense has been wanting to perhaps not necessarily make the case, but insinuate that there may have been investigative missteps by the Chula Vista Police Department. And what they really want to focus on is perhaps, is there another suspect? Is that potentially one of these people who could be the killer for Maya? Because obviously they're defending Larry. comes to show that perhaps that could be advantageous to him. But the judge has been very, very hesitant to allow the conversation and allow the line of questioning to go that far. So that brings us to today here. The prosecution was seeking to ask Laird about his last contact with Maya, why he did not attempt to reach her after January 7th. They argue that communication gap was relevant because they spoke nearly every day that week. She was confiding in him about the upcoming divorce, but then the communication abruptly stopped. The defense said that allowing Laird to explain his whereabouts would, quote, not quote, but essentially paraphrasing here, introduce a backdoor rebuttal to what they believe is potential third-party culpability. Again, it is that scenario where perhaps there is another person who could have killed Maya other than Larry. The court had previously excluded that. They argued that if Larry was able to provide an alibi, the defense should be permitted to question law enforcement, essentially saying, you're allowing them to go this far in the questioning. We think we should be given that extra runway to prove that rebuttal.
Yeah.
However, the judge ruled prior to his testimony that the explanation for the communication gap is relevant. There have been multiple other witnesses, family members, friends, coworkers, etc., who have on the stand testified about how that communication with Maya had stopped. But they also said that the alibi, the quote-unquote alibi, is not an issue. So the defense objected to it, denied, and kind of like we've been hearing from this judge as time has gone on, he really wants to play it on a question-by-question basis. I think it is, I think both the prosecution and the defense, in the eyes of the judge, have raised certain points that I think he views as valid, but there's a clear gray area that he's wanting to operate in very cautiously and doesn't want, these questions to go essentially off the deep end into perhaps maybe, I don't want to say conspiratorial, but clearly what the judge views is outside the bounds of the conversation.
And I think it's fair to say that even for the prosecution to call up Jaime Laird, it's a bit of a risky move in that I think if you asked every prosecutor, if you asked every criminal defense attorney, they would love if they had every witness they called up be an unimpeachable figure, someone who is completely honest in their day-to-day life, never once lied. But you have to start with the premise that this is someone who, while Maya was having the affair, he also was having an affair. And that creates this sort of sense of that this is a potentially dishonest person. While, of course, the prosecution is trying to point out that this is someone that Maya confided in, someone that Maya, that they loved each other, and that this was someone that she was willing to leave this marriage that she felt was so dangerous for, but then also that Larry was aware of that, and that may have pushed Larry to commit this murder. But at the same time, this is someone who might inherently be a dishonest person, and we saw some of that sort of play out in the cross-examination, which we'll get into the details here in a little bit. But a very fascinating move because, again, not everybody is this 100% saint. Obviously, you're dealing with a criminal trial here. But I did think that it was very fascinating that even if you go back to sort of that conversation about, well, you had been in contact with her, and why didn't you contact her after this date? And we'll get to that explanation. I know Jenny touched on that in a little bit as well, too. But even that topic, that specific topic, is sort of a microcosm for this sort of macro topic of you basically do have this witness who is, pretty as well documented, has been dishonest, both in his personal life, but then also, as we are about to highlight here, also in this investigation and maybe even in this trial itself, in pre-trial testimony and so forth here. We'll start with the direct examination. This is obviously a prosecution's witness. So they dive into just sort of how this relationship got started. Both obviously met through work. They worked at the Southwest Regional Maintenance Center there. They pretty much developed into a romantic relationship and first became intimate in early January in 2020 in Maya's office, both married at the time. You see, this is actually the first time that we've utilized the sketch artist here in the courthouse, by the way. A reminder, camera's not allowed, but we obviously felt the need that this was a witness that had built up in anticipation. They primarily communicated via Instagram, Microsoft Teams, but they also used work platforms and text, Teams being one of those. The affair was first discovered in February of 2020. Laird lied to supervisors after word came that there was a potential affair, a workplace relationship. He actually signed a statement under penalty of perjury claiming the relationship was strictly professional. Again, I bring up that this is Laird being openly dishonest here, in his past, claiming that the relationship was strictly professional. Then there's an internal affairs investigation. That meeting was Laird's first time. Apparently, Larry was brought into this meeting as well, too, where this document was signed. It was the three of them, I believe, and Larry was there. And this is a relationship, again, I think is best characterized as Maya was confiding in Laird. There was that romantic relationship. But Jack, as we found out, there was also a lot that she confided in him about her marriage that she was struggling with.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting note too, just kind of out there before we continue. The affair was discovered very shortly after it began. Started in January of 2020. They had only known each other for about 6 or 7 months at that point, and it was just a month later that Larry had found out. So this thing kind of blew up relatively
and then that's when those
quickly.
Anonymous messages were sent into the workplace, right?
Yes,
and that we believe is from Larry because of the relationship with the Google account or so forth, that we believe there was the misspelling of the acronym or something.
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
that
I mean,
Larry had used in the
from the genesis of the affair to the from it exploding and being exposed relatively quick here, but in that time period, and of course the time thereafter, because they were still in contact, Maya, like you said, was confiding a lot in Laird about their relationship. Things that we have heard from other witnesses and other coworkers. She was talking about being tracked. She was talking about those subliminal audio messages, losing driving privileges. In their texts, they referred to Larry as Voldemort, the Harry Potter villain, and he who must not be named.
Right.
Just to kind of give a sense of how he was being described in these texts. Laird even described the tone of Maya's conversations about that as someone who was losing control of herself and was wanting to take it back. So he knew that she was planning to divorce Larry. Of course, the timing, this is supposed to be after the Big Bear trip. Remember, in those days before and those weeks before, she had really actively been ramping up that process of getting a divorce started, talking to her family about financing a divorce attorney and being able to pay for that, getting in contact with a divorce attorney. He told Maya to be careful because of all of the stuff that she has been confiding in him over the course of 18 months or so. At this point, he offered her a condo to stay. This is of course according to his testimony. Larry had actually contacted Jaime's wife about the affair as well. Laird said that he got, of course, upset with Maya, saying he couldn't have the situation keep happening. Communications returned to divorce plans shortly after. And then from January 6th to January 7th, remember, January 7th is the last time Maya had been seen. Or the 6th or the 7th was the day of the disappearance. Maya had told Laird that she had spoken to her oldest daughter about the divorce and that she was receptive to it. So we started to see this conversation slowly start to bleed out, these steps that are taken traditionally when it comes to divorces and affairs. Of course, there's the separation, then the divorce, then confiding in family members about it and breaking it to them as to why you are seeing, a child's parents, separate and whatnot. So we'll go to this last communication, and I'll pitch it back to you here in a second. Laird left for work after receiving word that his wife was in labor. Again, they were both married. This is on January 7th. Told Maya he had to go. According to the testimony, Maya's last message was sent at approximately 2:03 p.m. on January 7th. So it was the 7th. My apologies. Laird did not respond. He was at the hospital with his wife in labor. He says he was at the hospital from the night of the 7th through January 10th. And again, they used a lot of different forms of communication. Some of it was work-related, Microsoft Teams, but oftentimes it was social media like Instagram. Laird testified that he's usually off of social media during the weekends or during certain situations. He says that this is one of those situations in which he will be logged off of Instagram and not responding. Did not reach out to Maya again after January 7th. He learned a few days later that she had been missing, and she was actually contacted by Genesis and Jasmine. So
her sister, right.
Exactly. So he thought that was alarming because they had no real prior communication with them, if at all. So, there wasn't that communication, and that's how he found out that she was in fact missing at that that time.
Yeah. Again, this is sort of probably raising the alarm bells internally. When you are contacted, you're in the midst of an affair, your child is being born with your spouse, and then the siblings of the person that you're having this affair with reach out to you, and unbeknownst to you that they were even aware of something that was going on. And I bring that up because we'll hear a little bit more about that sort of fear that Jaime had. Now, at one point during this testimony, Leair did read aloud. I thought this was also really just more of a courthouse sort of mood setting here. Leair read aloud a 3-page letter that he wrote to Maya before she transferred to the Naval Information Warfare Center. But this was in June. This is going back. This is prior to her disappearance, prior to the child being born. This is June of 2020. So she's being transferred. So they're basically being separated physically at their workplace, right? This was a 3-page letter that he wrote and he read aloud here. It referenced a tattoo he hoped she would get, which was later confirmed to have been placed on Maya's wrist. So she got this tattoo, but he read this. And the reason I bring this up is because I think for a lot of reporters and those in gathering, they wanted to see what Leair's reaction would be. I mean, this is someone who we've got documented proof was obviously very upset about that his wife was unfaithful. No visible reaction, but Leair was very emotional at points during this testimony. Now, cross-examination here, this goes back to the honesty thing that I was talking about. So essentially, defense was saying, you have a pattern of deception across multiple settings. You lied to coworkers, your wife, your supervisors, NCIS. In an assigned statement under penalty of perjury, you lied. And then also in police interviews, you lied. Leair confirmed each time, yep, I lied. Yep, I lied. Now, this is the first time that Leair publicly admitted the affair began in January 2020. Prior statements, he said it started in May or June of that year. Now, Leair could not recall their anniversary date without being shown his own Instagram messages. The defense also highlighted that Leair had not been fully transparent with investigators about all of the platforms that they used, because apparently it was even more than just Microsoft Teams and Instagram, but also things like the internal platform at the SWRMC, something called Fusion Chat. And then on January 6th of 2021, Maya asked Leair to delete all of their text messages on Microsoft Teams. That was the day before she disappeared. That's something Leair confirmed to. And Leair deleted entire Instagram accounts on at least 2 occasions and told Maya there's no proof his word against mine. He changed his phone number in April of 2021. So that's 3 months after Maya went missing and 1 month before his 4-hour police interview. He told detectives it was because news outlets were contacting him, but the defense pointed out Leair and Maya had discussed changing his number on January 6th of 21, the day before she disappeared. So trying to point out, well, you guys had talked about this before she disappeared and you ended up doing it 3 months later. Maybe is that something that, again, just that whole casting doubt thing that we had talked about. Instagram messages available from September of 2020 forward. Ryan noted a gap from January to September. Leair said he was unaware of why those messages were missing. So pointing out a lot of inconsistencies or just potentially dishonesty that they feel, again, works out in their favor. Of course, a whole host of things that were discussed here, including even more talk about, obviously, poison hemlock and other experts that were brought on there. But that wraps up the Leair conversation, if you will, I think. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to jump back into this when we come back. But first, we'll take about 2 minutes here, regroup, and then kind of lay out what else was talked about. All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Right Now here on the CBS 8 app. We have been discussing day 20, which of course was yesterday, of the Larry Millete murder trial. Want to sort of recap everything that we might have missed here and sort of what is still obviously something that was discussed in the courtroom that maybe we haven't had a chance to get to, or maybe hasn't been in some of those stories. We have limited time with a lot of the things that we do.
And we were also off for a few
And
days.
we were off,
So today's day, or yesterday was day 20. Today's day 21. We missed days 18 and 19 of this trial. So of course you're always getting some information in there. So we wanted to just do a brief rundown of some of the stuff because a lot of it, of course, is relevant. Some of it sets the stage for the second phase of the Millete conversation we're going to have today. So let's jump to this really quick. This is some of the key hits of what we missed here in the past 2 days. A UCSD professor called conine, remember conine, that is the toxin that is found in hemlock. Of course, that has become a major talking point of this trial, a super toxin. They continue to say that it can't be bought. It's not something you can purchase in its concentrated form on Amazon or anything legally. It must be extracted from hemlock. Now, he says that if this was something that you were wanting to procure here, the, I guess, legal quote unquote way to do it, or the easiest way to do it, would be to go find it yourself and to go, do whatever it takes to extract it. It comes through the sap. That's some notes that we'll have a little bit later there. We also heard from a tutor who was there on January 7th to help one of her children, said she didn't see Maya at the home at the night of the disappearance. I think that was about 6 p.m. in the afternoon, whether 6 p.m. that she arrived or as she left. Remember, we were just talking about the communication between Maya and Jaime. 2:03 was the timestamp of the last message that she had sent to him. His wife was in labor. He didn't respond to it. A DA investigator said email accounts deleted 10 days after disappearance. That is, of course, that is referring to Larry's email account. We were talking about some of we've done a lot of search history stuff. It had stuff about spell casting, subliminal messaging. There was a Google search for, I can't think of the technical name right now, but what's commonly referred to as the date rape drug. And Maya's final Google searches included divorce attorneys, a dirt bike. Remember, they were about to go on a trip to Big Bear. I don't know if a dirt bike is necessarily related to that, but divorce attorneys, we do know that in those days leading up to it, major topic of conversation. But coming back out here, Chris, those first two notes that we had up there, the hemlock conversation, is going to be very important here because it wasn't just Jaime Laird who was on the stand during yesterday's proceedings. We had Jonathan Paul Revman, who is a botanist, scientist, curator at the San Diego Natural History Museum, the department head of botany, more than 30 years at the museum, so a career that has spanned 3 decades just here in San Diego. And here in San Diego is going to prove important to his testimony, especially if you're the prosecution, because not only does he have a vast knowledge of plants and flora, but also specifically here to San Diego. So to kind of break it down, he was, he's qualified as an expert in field botany, specializes, like we said, taxonomy, flora, here specifically in San Diego County. So, of course, they were contacted by the prosecution because of this hemlock. He authored a report on hemlock. So just to kind of break it down, it is a non-invasive or non-native, invasive plant, which is common here throughout the county. It's got an umbrella-shaped flower clusters, a distinctive purple blotch right there on the stem. There's a photo of the hemlock right there. So he kind of broke down where to find it, how much it takes. It takes roughly 300 milligrams to sufficiently kill an adult. That's, if you want to break it down to how much visually, that's about 5 to 7 compacted leaves in a powder form that can fit in a single capsule. So, essentially a pill of conine, which is derived from hemlock, is enough to kill someone. It's a neurotoxin, most commonly leads to paralysis in the lungs, which eventually goes to respiratory failure. It can be absorbed through skin or inhaled. The jury was actually able to see it during this hearing. He wore gloves. He said that it's generally, quote unquote, safe to touch if you wanted to. We're not gonna recommend it because if done enough, it can kill you. But if a lot of it's found sometimes like in Balboa Park, the Florida Canyon. If those of you, I go on walks there a lot. So if you're walking by and you brush it, not going to do
No.
anything. But if you're getting all up in it and you're, grabbing all the plants and all the flowers and all that, you are running a serious risk compared to, according to this botanist here.
Yeah, if your dog decides to eat plants, right? I mean, this is something that
PSA as we're having
literally.
this conversation.
I mean, because this is, as you pointed out, this is something that is commonly found in Balboa Park and throughout our area. And so, I mean, this is your classic character witness. This is somebody, or excuse me, not character, expert witness, the opposite of character. This is your classic expert, right? This is someone who has no connection to the actual investigation itself in terms of, this is someone who was contacted. Can you testify to the facts of, in an objective way, to the facts of what we believe is a pivotal piece of this puzzle that we are forming for the jury, right? And I think that what's also very important about pointing this out of his testimony is that we have been sitting here in our own sort of discussions about this case, wondering what the smoking gun, so to speak, was going to be. What is the official cause of death? And we've seen such a huge focus on these toxic plants. And despite the fact that those loud booms on the Ring camera have still been brought up, it does appear that while they can't say for certain, we'll talk to Jenny Day a little bit later on the week about this, is that it does really feel like this is something the prosecution has really begun to highlight and focus on, right? With their with the testimony that they have, with the witnesses that they are bringing on, that they really do believe that Maya was potentially poisoned. That this is something based on what they found in the house, based on the toxicity of these plants, based on the commonality of them, that they were even could be found, they were shown a map placing both plants in the vicinity because there's hairy fleabane, which is also the other common plant in San Diego that can be poisonous as well too. They were shown a map of the jury was of where it is that they can be found in vicinity of the Balboa Naval Hospital.
They often grow together.
Yeah, they grow together. What was the term for it? It was both plants are disturbance loving and can grow together.
Yeah.
Disturbance loving.
I'm not entirely, it may be referring to it being non-native invasive, that they just, tag team it if it's an invasive species that goes into the area. But yeah, I mean, and also what they say is that if you're finding a sample of a plant in a vial, of course, this is what you're seeing the prosecution allude to here. Yeah. That was found at the home of Larry and Maya Millete. Just because you find hairy fleabane in there, that doesn't negate the presence of conine, of the chemical specifically. So if you have hairy fleabane and maybe you don't have hemlock, it's not just as easy as saying, well, there's no hemlock, so there's no conine.
Right.
That is, so there is that grayish area, that nuanced area where just because you might not see the hemlock doesn't mean you don't see the toxic chemical that resides within it.
Yeah, and he admits he's not an expert on extracting it. Yeah, but there are various ways to extract the actual poison. During cross-examination, essentially the defense was just trying to point out that, look, this is prevalent, right, throughout the U.S. and into Mexico. An average person or child may not know that the plant is poisonous, and that thus the presence of the plant itself may not actually be a reason to, we saw that there are flowers that are a part of this, right? But the witness actually then corrected the defense on the location of the Balboa Naval Hospital during questioning. That was a bit of a correction that was done. But the defense continued to press his knowledge of the lethal dosage and extraction, something he admitted that he does not have personal expertise on. Just sort of, again, not attacking the witness, but also just sort of pointing holes and, okay, well, you're not an expert in exactly how it is that how much poison can kill a person or how to extract it, but you're an expert on this is where we find it and so forth, and also that it's common. And that the defense noted that cutting or crushing stems would yield sap mixed with other plant material, not pure conine. So that's something that Redmond agreed with as well too. And then that did it for his part of the testimony. So, essentially, I believe that this leaves us here with obviously a lot more here to go to. I do believe that we had also we had more law enforcement that was brought on as well too, right, Jack?
And we'll expect that here through the rest of the week. It was perhaps the shortest portion, it looks like, here through the timestamps that we're looking at of today. Recalled Matthew.
It was actually a recalled witness.
It was a recall. There's a possibility in which we see him return to the stand later. I know that the court adjourned at about 4:30, and a lot of it still had to do with just some of the search history and a lot of the documentary evidence, especially from a lot of these electronic devices that were seen. A lot of it are similar stuff that we've heard before. A lot of subliminal audio, a lot of different photos of. There was one of a repaired hole in the wall, a damaged door. I don't want to say directly whether this is the one that we were talking about, but we have heard earlier about Larry punching a wall. The judge said that, either the judge or might have been the first witness was who's now paralegal at the divorce attorney's office, but she was a secretary at the time. They were either one of them made a differentiation that isn't necessarily domestic abuse. However, a lot of character evidence, as we're trying to see here. They're both making the case there. The jury was shown a photo of that repaired hole. They were showed a video of a vehicle trunk with a duffel bag dated January 7th of 2021 at 3:40 from Maya's iCloud. Certain apps that were found on Larry's phone, Instagram recorder, subliminal. Again, we know about the subliminal messages. Other things that were present, Fiverr, I'm not entirely sure what that is, Coinbase, Google Hangouts, Gmail, a Bible app. So just a little bit more details as to what was found. Of course, we've seen before here that sometimes when we're going through these trial notes day in and day out, some of these notes about things that were found in certain parts of the house might seem a little mundane at first, but it was just a few days ago that we saw that it was the vial that was found in there with a plant-like substance. And as time went on, we started to learn that there was tests for hemlock. One of them came up as positive for poison hemlock, either poison or water. I think it was poison. And so, we see that these become significant.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn a lot more about the investigation today, it seems like. If you want updates on that, of course, Kelly Hessedal is there at the courthouse right now. The trial should probably have resumed here by now, about 30 minutes ago. So she comes in during our middays. That's at 11, 11:30, and 12. So if you want the latest updates, make sure to watch our midday shows and, of course, watch our evening shows, because we got Kelly doing it in the evening shows. We have Jenny Day doing it in the evening shows. And as you mentioned, Jenny Day joins us on Thursdays. So we're going to have her on here, and we're going to be able to get an idea of what these latest week of deliberations and of the trial, what it's like inside the courtroom from a first-person perspective. So excited to see that.
Very excited to see that. Okay.